It's your boy Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you 2 flights up from the kitchen. Had to run down and get some more coffee. I'm in the attic. The show is Philanthropy and Focus, and your boy is the nonprofit sector connector. Today, I will actually shout out the date. It is 2/7, and it is 197. Mike Durney, good morning, Mike. You are the 197th. You are on the 197th episode of Philanthropy and Focus, an idea I had talked about for 2 years and have now been implementing this idea for the last 4 years. So closing in on 200 episodes. My friend Mike Durney, how are you? Good morning.
Good, Tommy. How you doing? I'm happy to be in the top 200.
You are. You definitely are, man. And
I made it. I squeaked in.
You squeaked in. Well, on a plan of 5,000 episodes, we're just getting started here. So I'm really, really fired up that I get to do this every single week, and I get to talk to leaders of nonprofits to help them tell their story and amplify their message. And I'm rocking the Mets hat. Shout out to Max Siegelman from Siegelman Stables, connected to Horseability. There's a whole story back there. Maybe another day we'll do it. But I got my Mets hat on. It doesn't really feel like spring. I think we're getting 4 or 5 inches of snow again tomorrow here on Long Island, but
it's coming.
We're almost there, right, Mike? We're almost there.
It's coming. Spring training,
right?
Pete Alonso.
Right, Pete Alonso. We got Soto. Pitchers and catchers are going in a couple weeks. Maybe next week. I got to check it. Here's the thing. My daughter said to me this morning, if I find that groundhog, she goes, I'm going to punch him in the nose, because that groundhog saw his shadow and told us there's going to be 6 more weeks of winter. So look, it is what it is. We get beautiful weather here in New York, and I was at the hardware store this morning, and I was getting some of that salt, for the pathway.
Mhm.
And I was talking to the guy, and I go, dude, he goes, did you hear about the weather tomorrow? I said, I didn't, but now I get to share 4 or 5 inches I just heard about from him. And I was like, yeah, dude, the cold drives me crazy. And he goes, yeah, but it's winter. It's supposed to feel this way. And he's right. So it is supposed to feel this way. It should be more concerning when it's 60 degrees in January,
Yeah, for sure.
So we can get the weather out, that whole thing like, hey, how's the weather, man? Did you hear about that? We can get that out of the way. We did that already, Mike Durney. We did it. So, Mike,
we run preschools. We worry about the weather, so it's okay.
It's funny. I heard I was driving my son and one of his buddies home. I coach my younger son's CYO basketball team. And the other 2 guys, my son and his buddy were in the car that come and help me coach. And I'm driving them home, and they were like, "Oh, dude, do you realize if there was half an inch more snow, we would have got a late arrival and a late start?" And they're negotiating. If there was a tiny bit more snow, we would have got a late. This is what's important to you at 13 years old.
Yeah, I hear you. We went through it.
Yeah, I know. Look, I used to love a snow day. And you'd watch back in the day where you would watch it on the TV. On the bottom of the TV, or you listen to the radio, and it would tell you the school closings and stuff like that. They would rattle off your school name.
You'd be rooting for it.
Yeah, you'd be like, let's go, let's get a snow day. So people around the world who never get snow are like, what are these guys talking about? Well, it's snow. It's the white stuff falls out of the clouds sometimes. So
you and I used to walk to school, right, in the snow uphill both ways.
Both ways uphill. Had no shoes. That was. I don't know about you, man, but I love to wear flip-flops. So as soon as I can put my flip-flops back on, I'm going to be excited. So let's get into this, man. I mean, we know each other. First, we met. We met 2 different ways. First, we met through Backyard Players and Friends, which we could talk about a little bit today. Yep. But we also met because, I don't know if you remember this, but I'm remembering it now. Ben Marcan, who's a friend of mine, a friend of ours in the insurance business, had connected you and my business partner, Ed Probst, of Vanguard Benefits, a number of years ago. And the 2 things happened simultaneously. And I think when we connected over Zoom one day, you were down at the beach club, and you're connected down there, South Shore, and all this kind of cool stuff. So we have a lot of people in common.
We do. And the web.
Yeah, it is a web.
We got a web.
We got a web. And when you said, when I saw on LinkedIn and stuff that you took on this role at ACDS, and then we had some other connections recently via email, it was like, dude, let's just get you on the show. Let's have the conversation. So like we talked about, this program is all about nonprofits and their leaders. So I really want to hear the Mike Durney journey. What was it? How did I do? That was good, right?
That was good.
I was going to tell you that before the show, but I didn't think it would be as much fun if you only heard it the first time live. So tell me about your journey, man. I know back in the day, we were talking about back in the day, you started in accounting and public accounting. You've been CFO, all types of roles. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your path.
Sure. Let's see how far back we're going to go. We're talking about walking to school. So,
Yeah, 19. Let's go back to like 72, 73, something like that.
all right, the Mets World Series. So I born and raised in Flushing, Queens. Lived there my whole life. 3 miles from Shea. Just since you're wearing the Met hat, three
Right on.
miles from Shea. Lived there my whole childhood life. Other than a year, I lived in Turkey. Actually, my
Wow.
dad was a teacher and was over there on a Fulbright scholarship and taught for a year. So I lived in Turkey for a year when I was a kid. Went to Oswego, which you probably know is the Ivy of the Great Lakes.
Yes.
Did you know that? It is.
I've said yes, but I was
It is.
really,
It
I
is.
was really pretending.
Oswego is the Ivy of the Great Lakes.
Is it really? So, first of all, SUNY school,
Mhm.
right? An untapped, I shouldn't say untapped, but I feel like SUNY and CUNY schools don't get enough play and don't get enough conversation, right?
For sure.
What are your thoughts on that? Talk about Oswego a little bit.
Yeah. So actually, I sit on the board of the foundation, the Oswego Foundation, have for about 20 years. So I'm still pretty involved in the school. Look, I always thought that, talk about state schools, Michigan State,
Sure.
North Carolina State, Nebraska, they're all big central campuses. Penn State, SUNY wasn't built that way. They have the main Albany, Binghamton, Buffalo, Stony Brook, which they've spent a lot of time building up as the four real core. But the way SUNY was set up, it's kind of so dispersed. So I really don't think it gets its due. It's 64 campuses in SUNY, and there's a lot of great people that come out of the SUNY system. I loved it there, and that's why I'm still involved. I got a great education, and it helped set me on a path that had a successful career, still have, and it works.
And I think, yeah, so it's interesting though. I hadn't even thought of that. If you think of Penn State, you think of State College, right? Like that's an entity, but then 64 different campuses. I mean, here on Long Island, you got, the two community colleges, obviously, you got Nassau and Suffolk,
Yep.
you got Stony Brook down here. I went to Nassau, graduated from SUNY Old Westbury, and, great, I don't want to say bargain, but great education, and you're not hammering yourself as far as cost goes, right?
For
I mean,
sure. That is definitely for sure. I mean, the different tuition is staggering between private schools and SUNY schools. And the education you get, especially for certain professions, right? Teaching profession, public accounting profession. Oswego had a great public accounting program. All kinds of my classmates went on to the Big Eight, as they were referred to
yeah.
at the time. So you get a great education, and you don't come out kind of looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans. It's a great deal.
So let's talk about that. So you talk public accounting. Is that what you studied accounting at Oswego?
I did. I was an accounting major, went to public accounting, started at Arthur Young, which, not the dance studio, Arthur Murray, but Arthur Young, which if you were born in the last 30 or 35 years, you now know as Ernst & Young, but it was Ernst & Winnie and Arthur Young. They merged way back when. Spent a few years there. I worked in a number of industries, ended up in kind of media entertainment. Univision was a big client of mine. Warner, before it was Time Warner, before whatever it is now, was a big client of mine. I ended up leaving there and going to work for Univision, the Spanish TV network, in its kind of formative days.
Univision, I believe.
Univision, yes.
Yeah. I'm just trying to help out. That's all.
You've now exhausted my entire Spanish. I took 4 years of it in high school. You've exhausted my entire repertoire of Spanish.
How did you get into like that media space? Was that when you were at Arthur Young? Did you have clients in that space? And it's sort of, tell us about like your interest there.
Yeah, when you start out in public accounting, basically you get assigned to almost anything. So my first client, we're really going back now. My first client was a tank engine manufacturer called Avco. So that's not how I got into media and entertainment. But then I ended up working on a couple of different things. MTV Networks was one of them back when it first spun out. So that was one of my first clients. I ended up at Univision in part because the partner on Univision was a partner on something else I had worked on. So, these things happen in public accounting. And then all of a sudden I had a specialization, kind of media entertainment. So I ended up at Univision, which was owned by Hallmark Cards at the time. Then Hallmark recruited me to go be the CFO of their entertainment division, which is called Hallmark Entertainment. Used to make the movies and miniseries.
Yeah.
That those of a certain age remember from being on TV all the time. So I did that for a while. I actually got into on Long Island, got into the shopper guide business, the inserts.
Yeah.
I was the CFO of an organization that distributed those. Then I ended up at USA Networks. I was there for a while. So we owned a bunch of things. We owned Ticketmaster and Hotels.com, Expedia, and a bunch of other, and the USA and Sci-Fi Channel. So that's kind of my whole first half of my career was media entertainment.
And so when you think of accounting from a business perspective, at the end of the day, I'm not saying this, I'm asking this. At the end of the day, is it all debits and credits and it's all the same kind of stuff? Like we either move a service or product or we sell so many widgets, or is there really nuance, like very informative nuance from industry to industry?
Yeah, there's a base, right? So debits and credits may be the base, but each industry has its own flow in terms of information need, what things are important. Manufacturers, cost of goods sold is important, and what your margin is. Other businesses like entertainment is how much you're investing in product, making, whether it's movies and miniseries or TV shows or books or records, whatever it is. So there's a nuance once you get into a specialization, but there is the core, as you said. Debits on the left, credits on the right.
Yeah, and so I think though it's interesting. So I was a finance major, and I said earlier, I graduated from SUNY Old Westbury out here, and I don't really use that background in my day-to-day work. And I was thinking, I was on the phone with a CPA friend of mine yesterday, and I was saying to him, man, I got a couple of these corporations, and I think there's one. I think I'm going to do the books myself. And I said, what do you use? Do you use QuickBooks? Do you use Xero? He goes, we use Xero. I said, I think I need some information, but I want to do it myself. And why I said that, Mike, was because I believe from the ownership perspective, if you don't know your numbers, man, you really don't know what's going on. So maybe you don't have to be, as a business owner, the actual accountant guy. You can have a CFO, you can have a controller, but you need to know your numbers, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get into that a little bit later and talk about my fractional CFO work, because you meet all different types of people, and some of them, know what they know, and some of them don't know what they don't know, which is dangerous. I often talk about kind of context and perspective. I think that's what CFOs provide. Is there's many times I've worked with a small organization and they want to get a loan from the bank, and the bank says, I need 3 years of financials. So back they go and press a button in QuickBooks, and out spits what everybody knows what QuickBooks financials look like. Brings them to the bank. The bank looks at it and says, I have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah.
There's owner costs in here. You got things in different places. Why is this up? Why is this down? And they don't even know.
Right. So then you're not telling the story. So you're not, right. In an example, that client, customer, business owner is not bankable because there's no story there to understand.
And here's what happened in this period. This is why this happened. This is what we did to implement a new initiative. We spent money on research and development. I mean, there are things from a context perspective that you can provide to somebody so they really understand what's going on. And I think that's a big part of how people grow their businesses, making sure they have the perspective on what's important and what's not.
100%, man. Because at the end of the day, gang, really, your business is a vehicle, right, to get you from one place to the other. And it's what do you understand? Do you know how that vehicle works? Do you know how it operates? Do you know how to turn it on and turn it off and all these kind of things? So this is good stuff. Mike, we'll take a quick break. We come back. I want to go into that conversation about the time as a CFO, and some of the different companies you were dealing with, and eventually we get into this ACDS conversation for sure. So Mike Durney, Tommy D, we are right back. Philanthropy and Focus.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to the hard skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Every single Friday, I'm gonna be in my attic. It's up to you. You know, I'll be here. And I'll be here and I'll be lonely if you don't show up and join me in the attic, everybody. I'm Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector. Mike Durney, CEO of ACDS. Wow, a lot of acronyms. CEO of ACDS. Mike, we were hearing about your journey, your path, what brought you to this work, and we're going to get to ACDS and what you do here at ACDS. What really quick though, why was it accounting anyway? Before we go into the CFO stuff, like, did you know as a young person when you went up to Oswego, were there accountants in the family? Like, what was it for you?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I even remember because I'm not going to tell you how many years ago that was, but it was quite a few. My father was a math teacher, so I was pretty good at math as compared to every other school subject that I came across. So probably math. I remember in high school they had bookkeeping, and
Sure.
I thought, all right, we'll see. That I never took it, but I knew people did it, so I thought that would be interesting. Bookkeeping and accounting, as we talked about, what happens when you get to be a CFO is quite different. So I think that was probably the path.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, listen, that's what it is. It's something that interests us at a different point in our life, and we kind of lean in. All right, so let's get into the CFO piece. What happened there? How did you get? And that was like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like a franchise where you were, pro CFO partners, right?
Yep.
All
Yeah.
right.
So Pro CFO Partners, an organization that provides CFO services to small and mid-sized businesses that need, again, I use context, perspective. They may have a bookkeeper, they may have an accountant, they may have a controller, but really need to understand how their business works, what the strategy plan is, how you set goals against the strategy, how you measure your performance, how you kind of know where you're going and know how far you have to go. So Pro CFO started about 5 years ago by two individuals. I joined right when they started. There was probably 6 or 7 of us at the time. I think there's now 50 of us. New York metropolitan area, Boston area, Philadelphia, Chicago, South Florida. So we're kind of Atlanta, sprinkled all over. I was CFO of an organization called DHI Group. We owned online recruiting sites for professionals. I was CFO there. Then I became the CEO and I stepped down. And at the time I was doing some philanthropic work kind of on the side, but I stepped down, and was looking for things to do. So I ended up doing a handful of things, including with Backyard Players, which you mentioned before. That's part of our connection. We had a board meeting last night, by the way, Backyard Players. Ellen said hello. So
Organizations, shout them out. Let's shout out Backyard Players, Ellen White and all the Whites and all the folks down there. It turns out I know Ellen and like her sisters, and it's like they know my aunts, and it goes back to like Queens and all this kind of stuff. But
everything goes back to Queens.
100%. A lot of it comes out of Hollis, Queens Village, Bell Road, to be exact. Talk about Hollis. We talked about LL Cool J last week on the show, or 2 weeks ago. I gotta just say, like, I gotta shout out the Lindy Lou Foundation. So unfortunately, my cousin Linda passed away about 11 years ago now, and we founded an organization, my aunt and my cousins. I didn't found the organization, but I'm on the board. We had a board meeting the other night because our big event is March 16th. The Lindy Lou Foundation, gang. So go to LindyLou, LINDYLOO.org if you want to learn more. But in memory of my cousin Linda, we give back donations. We have a big event, which is on March 16th this year at Syosset Lanes. It's a big bowling event. And all the money we raise goes to organizations like Backyard Players and Friends. Maybe we can get ACDS a little bit of money, Mike. We can talk about that. All to serve the population of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. One more shout out before we go into, you tell us about Backyard Players and Friends in a second, but one more shout out is my friends, where I sit on the board over at Spirit of Huntington Art Center, redid the website and our new logo and everything for Lindy Lou. So it all sort of comes together. Let's shout out Ellen White though. You're on the board there?
Yeah, I am president of the board.
Yeah, you're the president?
Yep.
How'd you get involved with that organization and what do they do?
Look, I've known Ellen and the family for a long, long time. It was, I'm pretty passionate about doing my finance stuff. They're incredibly passionate about serving the community that we serve, and they needed some support kind of from a strategy, oversight, governance.
Yeah.
So they asked me to be involved, and I've been involved for years. The way I describe them, which is the way I describe ACDS, they are amazing people who do amazing things for amazing people. And I love providing the support. We keep expanding, as you know, because you've been there a couple times, and Lindy Lou provides a lot of financial support for us. But they just keep coming up with great ideas. So when I stopped working full time and I was looking for things to do, I had been involved with Backyard Players by that point already, but I started to do a couple other things. And then I became the fractional, then part-time CFO of New York Public Radio during the pandemic. So everybody lived through the pandemic. Everybody's got stories about pandemic. My first day was March 16th of 2020. So I came in to be the interim CFO while they were trying to find a full-time CFO. I call it my Gilligan's Island adventure. It was supposed to be 3 months. It ended up being 9.
He's referencing a 3-hour tour, gang.
Yes, the 3-hour tour. Sorry, 3-hour tour. 3-month tour became a 9-month tour. I, unlike Gilligan, got off the island eventually, but they found a full-time CFO, and then I ended up with Pro CFO Partners. And Pro CFO Partners, we serve both for-profits and not-for-profits. And I end up being the fractional CFO or part-time CFO for a handful of nonprofits, and that's eventually how I ended up at ACDS as the part-time CFO.
Good. All right, so we're getting to that point really quick. One thing I want to point out, guys, go to bypandfriends.com, bypandfriends.com, and that's for Backyard Players and Friends. I gotta just say one thing. When I go out there and I get to see Nana around the block at Love by Nana, gang, this woman, my Nana's been gone for a long time, and I'm gonna get mushy and emotional here, but my Nana's been gone for a long time. But when I go visit Nana, my Aunt Ellen Cunningham, who's the founder of the Lindy Lou Foundation, my cousin Linda's mom, goes down there and volunteers. And at Nana, so Nana's place, gang, around the block from Backyard Players and Friends, is on Rockville Center, right? Rockville Center.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go there, I go around the block, and Nana has like 20 washers and dryers, and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, adults in programs, will come out and they wash these gently used baby clothes, and they clean and dry and they fold and they pack these baskets of clothing that go out to families in need. I mean, Mike, it's like unbelievable. It's like that. My friend Christine Deska, we talk about social return on investment, like that net, everybody wins. Like that's an organization like that, right? The programs serve people in the community who have needs, like, as I mentioned, Nana's program, but, even the storefront at Backyard Players and Friends, that's a vocational training ground for individuals to learn how to use the register, or just engage with customers, or fold clothes. And the funniest thing, or for me, is I go there and all the products that are on the shelves are products from other organizations or businesses that hire people with neurodiverse communities, right? So the products that they sell in the store are from other organizations. That's whole, social return on investment, but also social enterprise is so great.
Yeah, like so many organizations, Backyard Players started. Ellen White, the founder, worked with Southside High School in something called Center Stage, where you have they put on productions with both neurodiverse people and traditional students, and it's the most amazing thing. And she's done it for years. And one day she met the mom of one of the former students and asked how he was doing, and she said not very good, because in New York State you can go to high school to 21, you can services, and then they call it the cliff. Is that all of a sudden the support falls off a cliff? And when Ellen said, how's he doing? She said, not very good. He doesn't see his friends. He doesn't do this. So she said, well, why don't we go in the backyard of the church? And I think it was 4 people. So she started with 4 individuals. And I'll say this is probably 12, it's probably longer, 12, 15 years ago. And now we have an organization, Backyard Players, that serves about 200 through socialization and different classes they have. And then you're referring to Love Nana, which is Ellen's mom. Same thing. Ellen's son is a police officer in Lynbrook, happened to meet somebody whose wife just had a baby and they were looking for clothes, didn't really ask, but was just talking about the fact of clothes. And they came up with this idea that they would take used and some non-used infant to 2-year-old toddler clothes, wash them and dry them, which is where the backyard players participants come in, and then package them as a present and deliver them. So we use third parties, churches, and other associations to deliver these. And I forget the count now, but it's in the several thousand packages we've delivered. And yes, you're showing when.
Yeah, gang. If you're, sorry, Mike, to interrupt you, but I am sharing the website, and if you're listening only, go to Backyard Players and Friends, which is strike that, BYPAND friends.com, and then there's a little tab up here that says Love Nana, but please, Mike, continue, because it's such, Nana, I love you. I got to come get a hug. She's one of the greatest.
So the other part is you were referring to what we call the front porch.
Yes.
Which they had the idea to start a store and sell products there made generally by neurodiverse people, and our participants work in the store, and so they're learning these life skills, and so the organization just keeps kind of growing. Which, when we get to ACDS, it's a similar story in a different path, but it's a similar story.
100%. And we keep kind of teasing the ACDS story, but I think it's always important, gang, to kind of set, you said something, and I'm going to steal it, but you said context and perspective as it relates to books and finances for businesses. And I always feel on this show, it's important to set that context. So my friend, Mike Durney, yes, background in finance and accounting, right? CFO, controller type work, right? And then has this interest in the support that he has for Backyard Players and Friends. And somewhere along the line, I'm gonna ask you now, how did you get this connection to ACDS? Where did that even start? Because it's probably some kind of networking situation. And as the nonprofit sector connector, people say self-proclaimed nonprofit sector connector, Mike, which is accurate, but a lot of people call me that now. So I think it's just just right? Like, I just own it now. That's just the way it is. Obviously,
you can just say it's proclaimed. You don't have to say so.
Period. End of story. Done. Tell me about how you got connected to ACDS.
All right. Well, you're right. So part of Pro CFO Partners, we involve ourselves in a lot of networking. So one of my partners, one of the other CFOs, is member of a networking group where one of the board members at ACDS is in that group. And he was talking about the fact that, and this is kind of coming out of COVID, a lot of cash flow issues here. We can go into that later, but like a lot of organizations, a lot of cash flow challenges during the pandemic, and those kind of flowed through. And there was a mention that they could use some support, again, context support for how we address the organization and the cash flow issues. And so they made the connection, knew I did nonprofit work, said you should think about Mike to help you out. I came and met the team. And when I met the team, the connection between ACDS actually sends some of its participants in the Dayhab program to Backyard Players. And some of the Backyard Players are participants in ACDS programs, the variety of programs we have.
Yeah.
And so the connection just worked. And somehow I went from helping out a little bit to being the part-time CFO to now the CEO.
I love that. We're going to get into that when we come back in a minute. It's so interesting, though, because, look, it's like saying I have a favorite child, because I have 4 of them. And I do. It's usually one who's being the least mean to me that day. That is my favorite. So it changes from day to day. This morning, I didn't have any favorite children on the way to school. But that's that's a whole nother story. No, I kid. But why I'm getting to that point is, if there is a part of this sector that is most important to me, it's organizations that serve individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and it's organizations who focus on mental health issues. That's it, gang. I said it. All right. So now everybody can be mad that Tommy D has favorites. Guess what? I also have a favorite borough. Let's go Mets. I love Queens. So let's get into it, though, Mike. Why do I say that? The thing is, all of these organizations collaborate together. Like you said, some of the folks from ACDS go to do some programs at BYP. Some of those folks come back and forth. A lot of those folks might go out to the Spirit of Huntington Art Center, where I'm on the board, right? We have the Artworks program. You talk about the Cliff. You talk about, people. aging out. At 21 years old, folks age out. Some folks are going to go to additional schooling. Some folks have already gone to college by that point, at 21. Some folks don't have that ability. Shout out to Spirit of Huntington. We have the Artworks program where individuals come and learn digital design work, website design, social media. In fact, they redid our brand for Vanguard Benefits. They redid our brand.
By the way, Tommy, sorry to interrupt. I've seen some of the work Spirit Group has done. That is high quality work.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah, Mike, they redid our website, mission, vision, value, all that stuff. It's great. You know what? And then you have Artability, which is Long Island's only special needs arts fair. And this art doesn't go on tour just because the individuals that make the art have intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's really good art. It just so happens the artists are neurodiverse. Like, dang, get it together. So, Mike, when we come back, I want to talk. Let's get into ACDS, the background story, why it exists, where it came from, and really, ultimately, we always talk about here on this program, what are the programs, what's the impact, who you serve, and obviously what's coming up, how can we help, that sort of stuff. How's that sound?
Great.
All right, this is Focus. Let's do it. Right back, baby.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Right, that is right. Cut through that static. Join me in the attic. During the break, I shared the website for ACDS. ACDS. Our goal is to help each individual develop their fullest potential, to their fullest potential. We bring a wealth of experience developed over more than a half a century to the job every day. We are proud to say that our greatest reward is having families share their stories of how ACDS has made the difference in their lives. Mike, I believe this. I say it all the time. It's not a throwaway thing. I believe we're all on a spectrum as it relates to mental health, and I believe we're all on a spectrum of abilities. And I think if we focus more on what people can do and less what people cannot do, we're going to make the world a better place. And that's kind of one of the missions, that's what Philanthropy and Focus is all about. Shining a light, helping tell stories, and making the world a little bit brighter. So Mike Durney, CEO of ACDS, my friend, let's talk about this organization, please.
Okay. So ACDS started, it'll be 60 years ago next year, 1966. Like a lot of organizations, started as a grassroots. A couple of families wanted to provide schooling for their children with Down syndrome. So ACDS actually used to be the Association for Children with Down Syndrome. The name got shortened a number of years ago because we address more than children and more than people with Down syndrome. And so now we serve all different types of neurodiverse individuals, and we really run the life cycle from early intervention, which actually can start before birth, from detection and awareness and planning standpoint, through we have a daycare center here in Plainview, and then we have the original school. We're in a different building now, but the original school, and then we own 8 group homes. We have a supportive apartment. We have 2 day hab centers where we provide support for about 160 individuals through those 2 centers. We have a number of other programs. We do brokering for families, we're very supportive of families through fiscal intermediary work. So today what started as a school for a handful of students, we serve probably somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 people across the broad spectrum of our services, some on site, some outside. We employ about 1,300 people today to provide those services. The other thing, we're very focused on Long Island. That is where we have the life cycle. We have 2 preschools in Westchester, one in Scarsdale and one in Pelham. The Scarsdale one opened about 8 or 9 years ago. The Pelham one opened about 2 years ago. So Westchester is really kind of a foothold for us now. And we're going to look at how we expand the services we provide in Westchester. But Long Island, we serve population literally from birth, pre-birth through the entire life cycle. And we have people in our homes that have been with us 20, 30 years. And they're part of the ACDS family. They literally are our family. They live with us.
I love that. Literally. Yeah. I love that. I got chills while you were talking about that because, I really, having my cousin Linda in our lives, we understood what it was like to have somebody with different abilities. However, Linda was not treated like she had any different abilities, it was same responsibilities and things and expectations for sure. I think as a society, I feel like we've become more focused on inclusion and we realize that we have to, where we're 50, 60 years ago, I don't want to get into Geraldo and Willowbrook and life's work and all these kind of things that, you and I and many people are aware of, but the world was a different place. And candidly, it was just different.
We focus on all abilities.
Yeah.
So, it's all abilities. Everybody's got abilities, right? Yeah. It's not disabilities, it's all abilities.
Abilities, right. Yeah. Where do we focus in on? It's, words have meaning. It's where what we talk about is what we think about. I want to go into all this type of stuff, but quickly, being an organization out of Long Island, how does the Westchester contingent, how did that happen? There was a catalyst there, right?
Yeah, there was a need. There still is a need. Westchester's quite underserved. And this, through connections with the state came and asked us, I don't know if asked is the right term, but I'll use it, asked us if we could do what we're doing down here up there. And so we ended up renting a former Catholic school in Scarsdale to get that started. And we have one in Pelham. Again, it's about 2 years old. We're really just getting started there. Interestingly enough, one of the challenges that we have and one of the challenges that the state has is early intervention. There's just not enough investment. It's gotten a lot of press recently. Fox 5 did something about it. Newsday's done something about it. Senator Torres, state senators, kind of gone after the state government about just not investing in early intervention. And technology has shown that early intervention has a huge impact on the ability to support people from pre-birth through their early childhood years. And one of the things we're looking at is whether we need to do that in Westchester because there's just not enough of it.
So let's stay there for a second because I feel like I want to dig in. Why is that important? The early intervention thing. Are we talking about over somebody's lifetime? How does that impact that, please?
Yeah, I guess the simplest answer is early development of brain function. The earlier you address it, the better you can support it as you go further, right? So if you wait till 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever, you're just not going to have the ability to direct the services that you need, whether it's physical therapy or occupational therapy, speech therapy. Those services, you can start those very, very early. But it's interesting, we have a pretty robust early intervention program here in Long Island. Again, we don't have it yet in Westchester, but the state they've talked about it. They just haven't done anything about it. It's awful. So we keep pushing along, but there are people that are getting out of it because the state just won't support it enough and people can't afford to provide the services. Now there's a whole separate issue about what they call the EI hub, which is supposed to be a clearinghouse for paying people, and it just doesn't work yet. Hopefully, yet.
Yeah, I like
it. But early intervention, you can see the impact on young children's lives by identifying the types of services they need early on.
Yeah.
So if you look at our organization, we provide it on site, center-based. We also provide it in the home. We have a van. We'll go to the homes to provide those services. And then It's good because when the students come to us, there's a natural progression through the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like how you said yet with that with a early intervention hub because gang, listen, hey Albany, it's Tommy D. I'm down here on Long Island. Listen, we need to do some changes. We make advocacy is critically important, and I learned a lot about advocacy on another show we do called the Professionals and Animal Lovers Show, all about animal advocacy. We have a big lunch coming up on March 6th. We're going to be interviewing Assembly Member Ed Robb because there's a couple pieces of legislation as it relates to the animals. But I was going to say folks and gang, and it came out as Fang. Gang, here's what I want to tell you. Lean in. If you want to make change, you can make change, right? Those politicians, they are informed by us. They work for us, and we can work together with these people, but we got to educate them. And, I think it's critically important having, some connection to this world of different abilities. I agree wholeheartedly that the earlier we can get in and give somebody the support they need, it's going to change their life 100%. It's not even negotiable. And shame on the state for not fixing things and getting it right. But, always opportunity to do that. I got to make one quick shout out because a very good friend of mine and business associate who you know well is my buddy Ken Serini. Ken Serini of the Imagine Awards. Ken Serini, managing partner, founding partner of Serini and Associates. In fact, I think he started at EY. It wasn't just Y, it was EY. I think by the time he got there, he might have got there right after you. But
he's a little younger than I am. So
he's a little younger. He's a little younger. And I'm a little younger than him. That's just math though, gang. It's no big deal. And it's a thing where Ken founded the Imagine Awards, and Ken and his team are so focused on, early intervention, special education, and really from an accounting perspective. So, gang, if you want to learn more about the Imagine Awards, Long Island Imagine Awards, Google it or send me an email, Tommy D at Philanthropy and Phocus, PHOCUS.com.
I'll put my own shout out to Ken. He is a godsend to the industry, not just us, just the industry in general. He knows more about what the state's doing than the state does.
Yeah,
which admittedly may not be a high hurdle, but he is a godsend. So I'll do my own shout out.
I like the shout out, and then Mike Durney dripping with sarcasm as the schmooze on WFAN used to say about maybe he knows more than the state, and that's not a high bar. Like maybe the state don't. I saw you, Mike Durney. I saw what you did. Very cute.
I'm sorry.
So shout out to Ken. There's a big Ken Serini love fest. We love Ken and the whole thing he's doing out there. But it takes your special advisors in your network to Ken sits on all the committees as it relates to the companies that him and his firm work with, and sits on all the panels and is on boards and learning more, because how are you going to be somebody's trusted advisor if you're not in the work, doing the work each and every day? So anyway, we'll leave that there. Let's get into a little bit of programming before we go to a quick break, Mike. So you talk about 8 group homes, you talk about the day hab centers, you do the FI, the brokering, and what does a day in the life look like? Why don't we start with this? A family gets a diagnosis of a different ability, right? And let's take kind of through the life cycle, I think would be fun. So early intervention, how does somebody get in the program there?
Generally comes from recommendations from either health professionals or through the school districts, right? So we serve a huge number of school districts. We have students from 50 plus in Long Island and fewer in Westchester, just because there's a greater concentration. So it often would come either from a healthcare provider directly to the family or through the school district.
Got it. And some of those, I noticed you have a big St. Patrick's Day thing coming up at one of the parishes. So is it fair to assume like a lot of this stuff is done in a school setting that's outside of your programmatic buildings and stuff like that?
It can be either. We have a center-based service, so families will come and we can do evaluations here. And then if they're in the program, they'll come here and get the services here, or we'll do them outside. I mentioned before, so we have a van, for instance, and we take the van into places where people may have a hard time getting here for whatever reason. So we like to be in the community with that as well.
Got it. What about, so as young people get older, some of the programs that come into play, like services, like maybe they are in, traditional school settings, but they need services outside or different things like that?
So the natural progression is you may come through early intervention, you may come directly into daycare, you end up in the preschool. So we serve 3 to 5 year olds. So essentially you're here for either a year or 2 years, depending on age. When you leave us, you often go back into the school districts, assimilation into the programs, depending on the district. We do provide what we call 5+ programs. So we have kind of after school or weekend activities, classes, support, and then you continue to move on. That there is somewhat of a gap in the services because not everybody takes it. They get involved in their own things in their own communities, but we provide the services and we're there for you. And then ultimately you may graduate into DayHab. So the DayHab is a sort of where we bring people together and then we have activities for them. Some of them work, have jobs, some volunteer services, do services for different organizations. Some of it is recreational or entertainment, but there's this kind of socialization and then support within the community. And so we have a whole operation that brings the people together and then brings them out into the community and brings them back. And then ultimately, we have the homes. If you do the math, though, we have 8 homes. We an apartment. We house today 54 people. I said this earlier. A lot of them have been with us a really long time. One of the challenges that we have with the state, I'll refrain from the state again, other than to state the fact, is the state won't support any more certified group homes. They just won't. They won't fund it. They won't support it. So it leaves people in somewhat of a bind. And one of the things that we think about a lot strategically now, one of the things we're thinking about how to address, given the state regulations, is we have a number of people in our homes who are getting older and need different levels of care. One of the things we would love to do, if we were allowed, is to buy or build new homes and take the people who would thrive in a barrier-free home, which our homes aren't. There's certain modifications to them, but they're not barrier-free. But the state won't let you do that. We can't build or buy a home and move some of our residents into that home to make our care for them better. They just won't allow it. So we're trying to find different things that we can do in terms of supporting and financing an expansion of our group home service within the state confines.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting how I want to talk more about this when we're not on the show because we just don't have the time or to get into all of what you're talking about. But I find this educational opportunity for our state folks, and at the federal level, which as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, as we sit here on February 7th of 2025, it's been a rough run the last few weeks for our nonprofit sector and some other parts of our society right now. But I think a lot of it is educating these folks up in Albany, for example, because I think they just don't know. And even if, I've been up there with the Queens Chamber of Commerce for Queens Day in Albany, Mike, and this is not a slight on lawmakers and folks up there. It's more like, how can they know all these things? I've been up there and I see, go around with the Queens Chamber, and we've gone from room to room meeting with the individuals, and a lot of times they can't. First of all, you can't know it all. No one can know it all. You have to have advisors, and I feel like the community and people like yourself and who lead nonprofit organizations, and I see a lot of our folks like Nicole Weingartner, the Long Island lobbyist, and folks over at McBride, here on Long Island, that are focused on just doing that lobbying on behalf of the sector to educate these lawmakers because they just can't know it all, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. Actually, a few of us will be up in Albany next week lobbying around some of our programs. I think, to be fair, there are some passionate people in state legislatures, but there's lots of people passionate about a lot of different things. And, there's a lot of competing priorities. Yeah. The state, over the last 3 years has been in a pretty good shape from a financial standpoint. So they've tried to make improvements in terms of funding of the various programs. So, we operate 2 businesses, the preschools and the adult services, that are in the 2 biggest budget areas of New York State, education and healthcare. There are people that are really supportive, but yeah, like any government, federal government, state government, city government, local government, county government, they all have their varying priorities. They got to figure them out. So, we spend time with local legislators, and they get it. Yeah, most of them get it. But I think that's it. I think there's competing priorities, and they do the best they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, listen, we throw the support to those people because most of them mean well and they want to do the right thing for the people that in these offices. Let's take a quick break. We come back, Mike. I want to know upcoming events. How can we help? Are there specific connections? I mean, we could have ranted about how to connect with Albany and stuff for 2 hours. So that's a whole nother conversation, because I think there's opportunity there. It's an opportunity to just educate people on what we need as a sector, and certainly what we need as an organizations who serve the population that I am so passionate about, and certainly that you're so passionate about. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, what's upcoming? How can we help? How's that sound, Mike?
Great.
All right back.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
You know, Mike Durney, I didn't even realize I had done this today, but like I'm thinking about your St. Patrick's Day event, and I got this T-shirt on, which is one of those like fake tuxedo T-shirts, but it looks like a leprechaun would wear.
Nice. Yeah.
So as I'm looking at the hat, the leprechaun hat on my other screen for your upcoming event, I realized I had this T-shirt on. And sometimes serendipity, baby, that's just how it works. The world was looking out for me, the universe. Mike, we got 5 minutes. This is what I call the lightning round. That's what happens when Tommy D doesn't take breaks when he's supposed to. We have 5 minutes at the end of the show.
Okay.
All right,
Let's do it.
Let's do it, baby. All right. So what's upcoming? How can we help? What are you looking for?
Yeah, look, I think, it's an interesting organization in that the state funds a lot of things, but what they don't fund, we got to find money for. And they're pretty rigid about what they fund and don't fund, both on the education and on the adult services side. So we're starting to put together plans around the literal things that we want to raise. Certainly the 60th anniversary is going to be a big deal for us next year. We're starting the planning around that, about really celebrating the various things that have happened in the first 60 years of our existence, and really plan for the future and figure out what to do in Westchester and figure out what to do from a housing standpoint. In the near term, you're right, we have a St. Patrick's Day event. We really look at that as kind of a community event. It is a fundraiser, but it's not the fundraiser. We're more interested in having people come and see what we do rather than, give us $1 or $2. We'll certainly take the $1 or $2, but so that's at the Parish Center in Rockville Center. It's an annual event, St. Patrick's Day. It's on the 15th of March. So right before the actual St. Patrick's Day.
Right now, and Mike, you know what I could say is, gang, if you go on the evening of the 15th, and you have some of that green beer, just understand the 16th is the Lindy Lou Classic out in Syosset. So if you want to wake up, or if you need to the hair of the dog that bit you, as they say, you come out to the Lindy Lou Classic the next day. But I'm sharing this right now, March 15th at St. Agnes Parish, right in Rockville Center. Shout out to Rockville Center.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the next event. And then we have our golf outing in July at the beautiful Hempstead Golf and Country Club, where I am a member.
Are you a member? So you know my buddy Frank Orzo, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Frank's been a member, nonprofit sector strategies, and his business partner, my good friend Christine Deska. Great. Hempstead's great, and I'd love to come out and play one day, Mike. Just a heads up.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. So look, I think this is incredibly helpful for me, Tommy. I appreciate you having me on. This is a wonderful organization. I used my line before. I'll use it again as we get towards the closing. We have amazing people that do amazing things for amazing people. And I agreed to take this job because we have such a great support organization. We're continuing to look for how we provide more services to a greater spectrum of people, but it is a fabulous place, and I'm thrilled to be here.
I love it. When do you have a date on the golf outing?
July 21st.
July 21st at Hempstead. Gang, if you want, send me an email. I don't see it on the website just yet. So
yep, we're getting there.
So when you get that, Michael, share that with me. Gang, if you're looking for more information, you just go to acds.org, acds.org. Mike, leave me with something that really, is there a community member that you want to shout out that's been very supportive of ACDS over the years, that's, in business, that we can give them a little love?
So we have quite a few. I'll tell you, we have a handful of banking people across the Valley. Shout out to Valley Bank. They were here through thick and thin, and there's a lot of banks out there, and a number of them have been supportive of organizations like us. But let me shout out to them, because we had some lean times in the post-pandemic from a financial standpoint, as did a lot of people. We continue to operate our business with limited funding. So shout out to that team.
I was out with them. I was at the Islander game about 2 weeks ago. My buddy Brendan Levy from the Queens Chamber of Commerce has some friends, Gloria, and some folks from Valley, who brought us out to an Islanders game a couple weeks back. So love that stuff. Anytime you want to bring me out to events, I'm a great guest, gang. I'm a great guest. I'm
America's guest.
I'm a pretty good +1, everybody. Mike, I appreciate your friendship. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for being here. And I accept the gratitude you just showed me, because I'm getting better at doing that. You know how you said this is just an incredible opportunity. And I think that's what I'm looking for, is to make an incredible opportunity so folks can learn more about amazing organizations with amazing people helping other amazing people. I might have butchered your quote a little bit.
That's all right. That's all right. That's good.
Well, I'm assuming, one last final question. I'm assuming a kid from Flushing's got to be a Met fan, right? Like that's
Mets and Jets.
Sorry about the football thing, but you know what? We root for the Chiefs in this house, which is pretty easy the last 4
boy. Okay.
Look, I grew up Giants fans. My sons still kind of look towards the Giants, but it's bad enough I made them Mets fans. You know what I'm saying? They weren't alive in time to see when the Giants won a couple Super Bowls, but
well, I'm a Jets season ticket holder, and it was easier at Shea and Flushing than it is in the Meadowlands.
It is a pain in the neck to get over there for sure, and it's a whole day event.
And it's not worth it.
No, right? Exactly. All the pain in the neck to get there, and it ain't worth it. Mike Durney, thanks for being here, bro. I'll see you soon. I'm going to work on getting out see you guys on the 15th. Will there be soda bread? That's important to me. Good,
especially for you.
I mean, gang, you don't know it, but I come from Feeney's and the Coxes. All right, Demisa just happens to be my name right now, but it's always been my name. But my point is, I'm Irish too, kid. All right, Mike. Have a great.
All right, Tommy. Thanks very much.
Thanks for being here. Make it a great day. See you next week. Bye.
You got it.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.